This video is about Babylon, Assyria, Libya, Sumeria, Greece, and some of the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and the rise and fall of empires because of their inability to maintain a strict light temple warrior philosophy and religion. Typically, scientists and alchemists and drug pushers and pagans who don't respect the earth and who aren't honest about the divine order for the fact that the star shines the brightest. People who are into the idea of constellation, colonists, call on E. That's who they call for backup. Call across the Mediterranean for E, or through the Middle East, or wherever they may come from. Call on E. Sit still. Constellation. Still and Asian. Sit still. Versus meditation in motion, which is Tai Chi, and meditation or spiritual power being drawn upon. The word backwards is draw, the word of God. Draw on God, draw on Chuku, draw on Ra, draw on spiritual power. In a quick motion, light speed, God speed. So you see the differences and the variations? Being still and meditating, being still and doing a magic spell, mixing things in slow motion, slow meditation in motion, and fast capoeira, and ultra fast, what I call Haru arts, where the emphasis is on the speed. And as you get into the spirit and move at the fastest speed you can, your thought process changes. It changes. And what you see is beyond magical. It is miraculous. You are a living miracle. And as the Spirit comes into you and you are the top, you are a living God. Think about that. I suggest you rewind this and hear it again, and don't take me out of context. So the old kingdom of Egypt, Babylon, when it was found by Nimrod, who was a great warrior. Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod founded Babylon and other centers, cult centers, right? Culture centers, martial art, light temple warrior, spirit warrior centers. This is also the difference between a Native American spirit warrior and a martial artist. It's the difference between any spirit warrior and a martial artist. And for the sake of simplification, I call myself the top martial artist in the past because most people don't make that distinction, which is important. Let me read from this little thing I wrote for you. The Babylonians and the Greeks are connected through Rome and Assyria. The Lower Egyptians look white as a result of this. So now let me stop for 1 second. Take a good look at this, okay? A good look at this. These are Babylonians. It says right here, Assyrians present the heads of their enemies in a panel. Remember, the Assyrians helped to conquer Babylon and take it away from the Cushites, for lack of a better word. Sargon of Akkad, Cush begot Nimrod, Sargon. Look at the history of Babylon and how Sumeria connects to that as well. The Sumerians were probably similar to the Assyrians. And if you look at here, look at the hair, look at the nose, look at the shape of the face of the conquered person. Look at his kind of height versus this kind of typical African, Upper Egyptian, Ethiopian, Nubian, Sudanese, Somalian, Tanzanian, Igbo, Nigerian, Angolan idea cattle calls. One way to look at this is to look at it from here up, right? These guys were conquered. This guy's the last guy. He's the king that they were protecting. And he's the top light temple war artist. Another way to look at it is light temple warrior, spirit warrior. Look at it on the way down. Okay, on the other side of the Narmer palette, there is a cattle bumping a temple. So one can look at it as these guys, the Assyrians started it by destroying the temple that belonged to the light temple warriors, spirit warriors. And, they do things like showing off their heads and bragging. And that led to the retaliation. Okay, look at the nose. Look at the hair. Okay. Look at the similarities between the loser on the Narmer palette, right here, and these guys who are Assyrians. So certainly the people in Upper Egypt were kind of, Lower Egypt were kind of Babylonian, Canaanite, perhaps Greco-Mediterranean, Semitic, white Semitic perhaps, Assyrian, Sumerian, Babylonian types. There's a thin line between all these groups of people. Just like there's a thin line between a Syrian and a Persian, because it has to do with the empire and the location of the empire. Just like Iraq, right? What's the difference between an Iraqi and a Babylonian? It has to do with migrations of people. That's why there's still some black-like Iraqis to this day, because long ago Babylon was a black place. Just like in Egypt, the Coptics and some of the more black-looking Egyptians. Long ago, Egypt was black and was invaded by Persians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Arabs, Greeks, Romans, and so on, and British eventually, so on. So notice the Persians, Assyrians, Babylonians. Okay, those are three groups of people from the same kind of area that all took turns invading Egypt. It's clear that they wanted what was there, and what most people don't know is that it was also personal, because their allies and their Babylonian mystery kind of chemical temple philosophy that created armor and stuff. This is, at this point, the Egyptians aren't really wearing armor, but their Assyrian enemies are. So you see this inability for the assimilated foreigners in Egypt to apply chemistry to their military to defend themselves from their foreign relatives, okay, those who were in Lower Egypt, their relatives being the Babylonians. All right, so Nimrod, which is Dormain or Dormain, backwards, main door, founded Babylon, and Narmer or Mene, which is backwards, or it was forwards, excuse me, main A's when you do the wordplay, found in Egypt, which used to be spelled with an A, but they started spelling it with an E, which goes back to the difference between the A and the E. The ray of the sun sounds like A with an E, versus Ra, which is the true name. Egypt the Great fell, and so did Babylon for cultural reasons. The Assyrian and Aryan culture brought them down. So the Aryans aren't the Germans. They were called the nobles. They existed in India to a certain extent. That's why Hitler went into there. Aryan means noble. Refers to a certain group of people. Arianism teaches the Father and the Son are not of the same substance, right? Going back to chemicals and alchemy and metempsychosis and metamorphosis, right? Changing yourself into something else, a different substance. They're not from the same substance. This different substance became God. And you can apply that to the history of the migrations of people, where the Pharaoh was black. And he says, well, the transition of the spiritual power left the black man and went to the white man. And this, in the movie Tears of the Sun, you hear Bruce Willis saying, God left Africa long ago. And you can extract the truth of my argument from there. Okay, so you have the Aries left the Council of Nicaea, which was in France. So you have the French and the Germanicus kind of Romans, Greco-Romans with German bodyguards looking out for them and part of the conspiracy, okay, giving us this kind of Nordic, Mediterranean, Frenchy kind of perspective, right? Where is France? France is by Germany, and I believe it's in northern Europe, right? More or less, right? We don't really think of them as Nordics because they're kind of like shorter, and we don't really picture kind of Vikings, English, and Germans. But there is the French, there's the Irish, there's some of the shorter people, okay? And that goes back to proportions and measurements and anatomy, etc. Okay, amalgamation and superimposition gave us the Bible, which is the white bull Zeus, Pergamum, Revelations. Where is Satan's throne in Revelations? Pergamum, right? The Greeks, Romans, Eastern Empire, Palmyra, the French and the Germans, along with the Babylonian mysteries, gave us every church we have and the resulting white supremacist presentations. Ultimately, the Old Kingdom Black Light Temple Spirit Warrior perspective, truth, versus a fallen Babylon mystery perspective, because they amalgamated the Babylon perspective, which is the same thing Egypt did when it went astray. So by the time you get Ramses, who is Seti's son, at the end of 400 years of slavery, Set, right? Set us free? No, he didn't want to set them free. He said, stay right here. Stay right here. Don't go in motion and start wandering the desert and go up to a mountain like a hawk, but stay right here in the jackal's, viper's den. Okay, and of course, Babylon has lions and stuff. Daniel in the lion's den, lions of, that comes with the confusion. Sekhmet is a lion that wants to kill man, and she has to have her female nature, kind of suppressed, or, brought to the light, or calmed down, soothed by Ra, the Most High God, the one true God. So these people believe in eros and thanatos and atos. Get rid of the a perspective, right? Eros has to do with sex. Thanatos has to do with an obsession with death, right? Eros is kind of like this fake version of making love, which is really this kind of carnal desire we see play out in the movies with the heroes in the martial art movies, the martial art heroes with their wives. Okay, sorry for speaking quickly, but there's a lot to go through. Okay, when the church is based on Circes, right? Church, the H is the fence. Curc, Circe, the Greek, right? The bull destroys, okay, so one way to look at it is the bull destroyed their temple and Mene revenged him. Another way to look at it is the bull is part of the greater martial arts perspective of this kind of strong martial artist breaking through the temple. You know, use some kind of bull ferocity and the hawk's grace, the hawk's precision, the hawk's speed. Okay, Stepan Hawking, build the temple up. Gnostic is a no stick to give the inferior warrior a chance to beat the spirit warrior without applying spirit, mostly not flesh, which is what sparring does. We take away the stick, but we spar with the spirit. They did the stick fightings. It's not the wrestling and the kind of brutal boxing, right? Boxing, think outside the box, transcend the box, you know, kind of thing. Mediterranean boxing, look it up. All right. Maxwell and Tsarion are Satanists with alien bullshit instead of giving black warriors their credit spiritually. It goes without saying, Manly P. Hall, Vlatsky, Stitchin are their kind of, you know, satanic idols. You know, idols. The idle hands are the devil's plaything versus being in motion like the sun. Okay, idols, you know. You know, which is some bitch shit. You know, worshiping some stone statue, doing some bitch shit. You know, you need a living spiritual leader. And he has to be a light temple warrior. You light temple spirit warrior. The pharaoh on behalf of the sun Ra Haru, dark side, demon, crazy, democracy, constellation. Okay? Constellation, constellation, still set, you know, sit still, you know, SETI, right? Now, this also goes to demon, right? Demean. Take away from the black warrior spirit. How do you do that? You make them crackheads. You infest them with diseases. You do everything in the underhanded playbook of people who are willing to play good and be evil when very few people who are good are willing to play evil. Okay, they're not willing to get their shit pushed and you know, take drugs and do evil things to see how evil thinks. And when I was misled as a child, I started hanging out with gang members. So because I was led astray, I was kind of able to see it from the inside to a certain degree while still being an outsider, not in a secret society, and see how they operate, perhaps more than most people. Okay, so peasant, peasant, right? Pissant, with all due respect. Protestant, right? Protest as an ant, right? Say, no, this tall guy, he's too tall. Now look, you know, there's some little men like Benaiah in the Bible have the heart of a giant. So when somebody's acting like a little bitch and they're little, it highlights the fact that they're a little bitch. But if you're like Benaiah and you take on a 7-foot Egyptian, you take his spear and you kill him, you kill a lion in his den, you kill some of the mightiest warriors out there to become the most honored of David's mighty men. You know, was Benaiah crying about they're too tall? Or did he fall in line and get inspired by the Spirit, filled with the Spirit, and take on his enemies? So telescope, how did the telescope play in? Oh, I see them coming. Let me signal my allies. Call on E, colonist. You know, projectiles, project L as E's, projectiles, right? Let's go to firearms and evolve warfare in a way that you're better off being smaller with steady hands, you know, than being tall. Okay, and that goes back to heavy metal and rock and roll, right? Change warfare with armor and heavy metals to suit certain figures, right? A figure 8, figure skating, Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding, you know, sabotage, etc. Sabbat coming from the Netherlands when they used to throw shoes in the shoe machine. See, war determines the social order. Marshall Caduceus, physician, which is the caduceus symbols of the physician. Physique, figure, is also the caduceus symbol of thought. Now let me quickly shoot through this. Proportion, profit, propet, profit, fitness, fig leaves, apron, figure, fig-your-e. You know, Jesus tall jeans, extremities, extreme it ease, right? How they relate to you. If you have tall genes and you're shorter, you might still have the tall gene of a reproductive organ, okay? And if you're shorter and you end up being taller, you might still have the shorter genes of the reproductive organ. Okay, now this is, I don't give a fuck. I would say my dick isn't the biggest, I don't care. stay tuned for part 2.